All right, we are live, guys. So we could start in 1 minute. Just wait for the views a little bit. All right, we could start now. Okay, so let me start first. At the time when the entire world was exposed to the coronavirus pandemic, when people were in the most need of medical supplies, there were a group of criminals who were hoping to benefit from this pandemic by selling counterfeit drugs and medical supplies, losing all features of humanity and compassion, taking advantage of the preoccupation of the governments and the law enforcement agencies, exposing the lives of thousands to the danger of another kind, a danger made by evil criminals who think only in their interest at the expenses of all people. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today at the ASEC Webinar, co-sponsored by HP. My name is Hazim Ibrahim, founder and CEO of Asia Security Group, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. So today we have a combination of distinguished panelists who have joined us to share their ideas and points of view on pharmaceutical counterfeits, how it can harm the society, how can brands and law enforcement combat it, and how can technologies assist them. Today's panelists, in fundamental sense, needs no introduction due to their active role in the industry, so I'll be brief. So to start, let me introduce Christoph Stigman, the Director for Sales and Business Development for Thesis Creepers, who helps international brands by linking their original products to the digital world via secured product markings. So brand owners adopt counterfeit protection solutions, achieve market transparency, and create customer intimacy, and profit from all the benefits of digitization. So welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. Next, I'll be introducing Ramesh Raj, who is currently the Pharmaceutical Security Institute Regional Director for the Asia Pacific region, where he carries out capacity building and training for law enforcement agencies in the region in areas of pharmaceutical crime, whilst working towards building and improving government relationships with the pharmaceutical industry. Thanks, Ramesh, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Next will be Ruth Lee, who is the Associate Director for the United States Pharmacopoeia. She joined USB in July 2019 as the Associate Director for Public Policy and Regulatory Affairs for the Asia Pacific region. She has over 30 years experience working in the pharmaceutical industry, including pharmacy practice in hospitals, retail pharmacy, wholesale, distribution, regulatory and compliance, as well as drug enforcement fields. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Stephen Dunn, who is the Director for Product Security Investigation in the Asia Pacific region for Sanofi. He is based in Singapore, I think currently in Vietnam, isn't it? So Stephen's portfolio at Sanofi includes identifying, developing, implementing, and maintaining anti-counterfeiting and product security processes throughout the Asia Pacific region, and mitigating identified risk to Sanofi's personnel, property, products relating to counterfeit, diversion, tampering, and the theft of Sanofi's products, packaging, and intellectual property. So huge warm welcome to our speakers, and thank you for your time today and actually joining us today for this webinar. Next will be, after this panel discussion, we will be joined by Dennis Shu, the Regional Solution Architect for HP Indigo, who will be sharing with us a little bit on the security and brand protection solutions of HP. All right, so we could have a quick overview on the companies represented today from our speakers. So we could start with Chris, if you could share a little bit on Thesis Creepers.
Yes, sure. To keep it short, we are part of Thesis Creepers is part of a big organization called Bayersdorf. Probably most of you know the Nivea brand. We are ourselves also affected by product and brand counterfeits. Yeah, a part of Bayersdorf is Tesa as well, and we just belong to this group, which is part of the top 30 German companies. Maybe you can go to the next slide, Ibrahim.
Yep.
You can see a few customers we are dealing with within the pharmaceutical industry. We work with Johnson & Johnson, we work with Bayer, and a couple of OTC companies, German OTC companies, basically protecting their products and their brand against counterfeits. On the left side, we are mainly active in providing unique markings for these drugs or for the packaging of the drugs. We usually combine that with web and app solutions for the supply chain members to check the authentication at any point of time. Of course, we combine this as well with project management, testing, and as well as strategic consulting if this is required. On the right side, the benefits, we focus on these things like stop fakes effectively, building up supply chain visibility. We call it intelligent track and trace. Reduce gray markets and also pricing issues across borders, things like that happen. We also help to activate customers by, for example, CRM measures. So the more consumers or members of the supply chain are involved, the more counterfeits you will be able to find. Those are the things we do in a short form.
All right, thanks, Chris. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think next we could hear a little bit on the Pharmaceutical Security Institute by Ramesh.
Hi, Azim here. Once again, thank you for having me here. In a nutshell, PSI, Pharmaceutical Security Institute. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So the PSI, Pharmaceutical Security Institute, was set up almost about 20 years ago, and we currently have about 37 of the pharmaceutical manufacturing as our members. So what we do is that we work with our members together with law enforcement agencies all around the world, both the international enforcement outfits like your FBI, Homeland Security, people like them, and of course with the localized law enforcement, drug regulators, customs as well. And what we do is that we share intelligence. We build relationship with governments, we build relationship with law enforcement, and we provide them an intimate update onto the pharmaceutical crime and what's happening at a global level. That's right. And then we also carry out operations together with our members and together with these law enforcement outfits to ensure that the counterfeit drugs and counterfeit medicines are not consumed by unintended victims or patients. So in a nutshell, that's our objective. Because for us, we believe that every life counts. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's about PSI.
Thanks, Rams. Thanks for sharing. Next would be Ruth. If you could just give us a brief overview on the United States Pharmacopoeia.
Yes, thank you, Hazem, for having me with the webinar. United States Pharmacopoeia actually is a 200-year-old company and is based in Rockville. It's an independent, a standard-setting organization. It's a not-for-profit organization. So predominantly USP, in short, we establish and disseminate public documentary standards for quality, purity, identity, strength, and labeling of medicines, dietary supplements, and foods. On top of that, USP also provide physical reference standards to support tests and assays in USP compendia. We also educate producers, practitioners, and others seeking information on quality and USP standards. So essentially, USP is a standard-setting company, and we are a global company, and currently we have about 10 sites globally spread all over the place. And USP Singapore office has just recently been established like 2 years ago. So our Singapore office is to look after the APAC region and to educate, to provide capability building, to bring closer our standards to our consumer and to our stakeholders. So USP also developed public and scientific quality standards that help protect people's health in areas like pharmaceuticals, food ingredients, and also we have a whole range of global public health programs too. So in a nutshell, that's what we are. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Ruth. Thank you. We could also have a quick overview on Sanofi from Stephen.
Sure. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone, depending on where you are. I'm the Product Security Investigations Director for Asia Pacific, or Sanofi. Probably most of you, if you're on a pharmaceutical ASEC webinar, you know who Sanofi is. We're headquartered in Paris, and I'm based at the regional headquarters in Singapore. We run, globally, we run a very aggressive anti-counterfeiting program focused mainly on vaccines and on rare disease drugs, oncology products, and life-saving drugs. We also have a big consumer healthcare division, and we run anti-counterfeiting programs designed to protect our products like Doliprane, which is paracetamol, and some other things you'd probably recognize if you went into a Watson's or a Boots. So Hazim, should we speak about COVID at the moment, or is that for later on?
Just a quick overview at first. We will be going deeper into it in just a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's the overview from Sanofi. Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. So we could our webinar agenda is quite straightforward. So we are currently in the panel discussion. We will have a Q&A session on 4 p.m. right after the panel discussion. And then we will be joined by Dennis Xu from HP, who will be sharing a little bit on the security and brand protection solutions by HP, and another Q&A session, and that's it for today. So next we could straight away go to the first question for the webinar, which is, what is pharmaceutical counterfeit? So I think, Ramesh, you could share with us a little bit on how do you define pharmaceutical counterfeit from your perspective?
Okay, gladly. I think there's still something wrong with the mic. So if I do go off, please raise your hand so I know when to stop.
We can hear you.
And I'll go crazy just talking. Great, man. All right. So yeah. So to the question is, what is a counterfeit pharmaceutical product and how can it harm us? I think the interpretation here on counterfeit pharmaceuticals can be defined in actually many ways, depending on who you're asking. WHO has its own definition, US FDA and other agencies alike. But the rule of thumb understanding here for any common man would be a counterfeit medicine is one that is actually deliberately and dishonestly mislabeled with respect to its source and or its identity. So with that understanding, it is clear that counterfeit pharmaceuticals are not manufactured by the intended pharmaceutical companies themselves. It is more likely to be manufactured by criminal syndicates who are in the business of only making money with no regard to human health or life. All right, so because that is quite understandable, counterfeit pharmaceutical products would not contain the intended pharmaceutical active ingredient, in short, which is the API. They might contain more or less of these API, and these APIs can be toxic in nature as well. And of course, the details surrounding the packaging is all mislabeled, or it's all fraudulently dealt with. So, and if you were to ask how can such a counterfeit product can harm us, one good example of this that I quote in almost all my other webinars is that an estimated 300,000 children die every year because of taking counterfeit meds. Now with COVID in the picture, that number will definitely not go down. So that's how a serious problem it is. So yeah, and I'll let the others continue from here.
So, Ruth, from a government perspective, could you share to us how pharmaceutical counterfeit can harm actually the government?
Actually, with the infiltration of counterfeits, or we call it substandard and falsified medicine, into the legitimate supply chain of any country, it actually diminishes the confidence, of the consumer towards the system, the regulatory system. Now, from the regulatory perspective, usually every government would like to protect and preserve the integrity of the supply chain, and any presence of counterfeits or substandard products detected in the supply chain is a huge blow to the whole system, and it brings forth detrimental effect not only to the public safety, health, but also confidence of the consumer towards the whole supply chain system. So, but as Ramesh has rightly pointed out, I think one of the issues that has been under debate is on the definition of counterfeit. What's a counterfeit medicine? And WHO has been over years been trying to get their member states, 194 member states, to agree on how counterfeit medicines should be defined. At the end, up to now, they can only call it substandard and falsified medicine because they could only agree on the attributes of what a counterfeit medicine would be. They even deviate from what their original definition of counterfeit medicines that was in 1992. So there is an issue here because with different definition adopted by different countries, it means different thing. So what is counterfeit to a country A may not be a counterfeit to a country B. So that makes it a little bit more complex. But whatever it is, you can call it substandard, adulterate, falsified. The bottom line is that it does cause harm to consumers and is a threat that is that have to be looked upon seriously. So yes.
All right. Stephen, from your perspective as a brand owner, what kind of harm can pharmaceutical counterfeit impose on a brand?
Well, from actions we've taken over the 6 years I've been at Sanofi, I mean, we have found counterfeit products with no active pharmaceutical ingredient at all inside, including in life-saving drugs like oncology products, chemotherapy agents, anticoagulants, vaccines, and hormone preparations, which contained either no active pharmaceutical ingredient or contained the wrong ingredient or contained a much lower level of the ingredient than is required. In extreme cases, we've found toxic substances and non-sterile substances in injectable products. We recently shut down an industrial concern in China, which was manufacturing a common anti-inflammatory called Novalgene for export to Africa. It contained the active pharmaceutical ingredient only at a level 5% of the stated amount, and there were contaminants including glass fragments, rat feces, bacteria in an injectable product. So in the worst case, a counterfeit pharmaceutical product can cost someone their life.
Yep, indeed. All right. So, Chris, if you could share a little bit from your perspective as a technology provider, how can the pharmaceutical counterfeit affect the brands in the market? I think, Chris, we cannot hear you.
Looking at the technology, my question was looking into the technology aspect, or
from the perspective of from the brand owner perspective, as in how does it impact the brand in the market?
Yeah. Well, as as the other speakers already mentioned, of course, if things are go wrong, like just described, yeah, you found things like glass in the product or the ingredients are not as supposed to be, then of course this is damaging. Of course, can cost lives as well as harm the brand, yeah, and harm the reputation. And when we come later to the technology aspect, I will talk a bit more in how to be potentially able to prevent that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. Thanks, Chris. So moving on, we have a quick graph shared by Ramesh. So Ramesh, if you could easily simplify this graph to us so that the audience and us can easily understand it.
Okay, so in this graph, what you will see is basically a dashboard, of the most counterfeited pharmaceuticals in that sense, therapeutic pharmaceuticals to be more exact. What we have seen, at least for 2019, our latest would be drugs that are related to genitourinary. That means medicines used to treat kidney infections, bladders and genital organs, medications for CNS, which means a central nervous system, to treat Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and epilepsy. Also, next would be the drugs to treat anti-infectives, basically would be to treat infections. Next would be psychostatic, that would be to treat cancer medications. And lastly would be hormone, steroids for bodybuilding or any other forms of steroids. Yeah, and there's been a growing number of seizure of steroids, especially coming out from Europe. But what you'll see, the commonality here is that basically these are all drugs or medication to treat chronic diseases. So can you just imagine if any one patient who is actually, fulfilling the hope of getting a recovery, but goes on to treat themselves to a counterfeit medication, like what Stephen mentioned earlier. It could be a drug that contains rat feces or urine as well. And obviously these are going to cause one's death instead of curing them. But other than that, what you will see is also the global arrest rate. But I think as we go along, I'll just come back to this dashboard again. In the meantime, I'll just let someone else go first.
Right. Okay, so this is the latest shared by OECD, the most counterfeit pharmaceuticals, which Ramesh just highlighted just now. So as you can see, it's antibiotics as well as the painkillers and the meal impotence pills. So it's the same concept as what Ramesh just shared. So from the perspective, so now we are moving on to the COVID-19, the pharmaceutical counterfeit. So how did the COVID-19 impact the pharmaceutical industry in terms of as a brand? So Stephen, could you please highlight a little bit from your point of view?
Sure. Sanofi, we manufacture 4 categories of product which have been either rumored or touted or has evidence for being either a preventative or a treatment for COVID-19 infection. And these are hydroxychloroquine, which we manufacture under the brand Plaquenil, teicoplanin, which is an antibiotic sold under the brand name Targocid, dexamethasone, which is the most recent one, a steroid sold under the brand name Decancel, and then our portfolio of influenza vaccines. Now, of course, influenza vaccines do nothing to prevent COVID-19. They're completely different viruses. But at one time or another, all of these have been said to be either a treatment or a preventative for COVID-19. In response to that, we launched a global monitoring program out of Singapore, Paris, and Boston to monitor consumer to consumer and B2C, C2C, and B2B platforms for people offering COVID-19 treatments carrying Sanofi's brand name. We found good and bad results. There were many people offering to sell all of these treatments, but very few people actually tried to market them as COVID-19 cures. I think that's partly due to regulatory authorities also being alert to the problem, and partly due, I think, to consumers having the opportunity to educate themselves. What did we find? We found centers of marketing in, I'll confine my comments to Asia, but centers of marketing so-called COVID cures in Jakarta, of all places, in Manila, and in Hong Kong. They were concentrated on B2C platforms such as Taobao and Lazada, and a few smaller platforms that are strictly local to Indonesia, the Philippines, or Hong Kong. We launched a program to make purchases from these. 90% of them turned out to be frauds. In other words, you send money and you get nothing. And the others sent in generic versions of our product. What we did not find was, in all the sampling, was a single counterfeit. They were all either you got nothing at all, or you received a generic version, which we were pleased to see. So I think we have to give some credit to the regulatory authorities in various countries being ahead of this problem We know, for example, that China policed their online platforms very aggressively to stop people from monitoring fraudulent COVID cures. And while I don't have direct evidence from the regulators, we haven't been able to travel to meet with them, of course. My guess is that they were all aggressively policing their own online platforms to try and prevent this.
Yep. All right. So, Ruth, from the government perspective, with the presence of the COVID-19, what have actually changed in terms of the regular procedures that is implemented by government and law enforcement?
Well, I think the COVID-19 has actually accelerated a lot of processes that probably used to be taking a longer time to approve. I think with COVID-19, you can see that there are a few things that happen. First is that regulatory agencies are finding innovative ways to accelerate their approval process for critical drugs or products that will help in the treatment or support the treatment of COVID-19. And this is one good thing, and I think it really shows that the regulatory agencies are collaborating very well around the world, and they kind of expedited their process, tremendously. Of course, with COVID-19, you can see there are a lot of drug shortages simply because there's a shutdown, there's a lockdown of manufacturing plants, in countries that are the main source of supply of APIs and other ingredients, and that caused a drastic drug shortages all around the world. And because of that, and there are other things that start sprouting out. Things like people purport to promote supplements as a cure. So you have all kinds of herbal treatments that's coming up to claim that they can cure COVID and everything. And with COVID-19, as shortages are acute, then you see that's a golden opportunity for counterfeiters to come in. If you see the reports, you have smuggling incidences of fake sanitizers across the borders, even the PPEs or the mask, everything and anything, that is being reported, that people are desperate and people are needed the supplies, and there are no supplies. So these are where the counterfeiters kind of jump in and start providing and producing. So these are times that actually the collaboration between the regulators and the industries are very key to ensuring that supply chains of such products are protected. Yeah, I'll leave it as that. I think our other speakers will have other things to add in.
Chris, in the perspective of a consumer, how is it possible that the consumer can actually know whether the product they are purchasing is a counterfeit or an authentic product?
Yes, there are multiple different ways. To keep it short, what let's say our experience confirms from within the pharmaceutical industry is mostly marking on the packaging itself. So the consumer can do it before the purchase. It does not need to unpack. Something like this. There are also a lot of hidden features which usually a consumer would not be able to identify. So usually, if this is the target, then most of our customers would go for a easy and very quickly and reliably, of course, identifiable product and packaging marking. So this is, of course, there are certain other aspects when you come to this, but as a general aspect, this is something companies would go for to make sure the consumers will be enabled to buy an original instead of a counterfeit.
Yep. All right. So, Ramesh, do you have any add-ons that you would like to highlight to us?
No, it is not.
All right. So, moving to the next slide then. So, what are the threats and weaknesses that emerged due to the COVID-19 pandemic? So, with the lockdown and a lot of countries that are totally focused on the COVID-19 and couldn't keep up with whatever is happening from the counterfeiters side, what threats and weaknesses have emerged? If Ramesh, you would go first.
Yeah, okay. Well, the COVID, obviously, everybody knows this. The COVID crisis has fundamentally changed globalization. The new norm is very different, and it's an unanticipated approach that we are taking it now. Despite ASEAN's statement and coming and showcasing a united front, we at the start of it, we have seen how there was very little coordination action between the member states in ASEAN. It was a case for every country for itself when everybody started shutting their borders and halting flights, to and fro from ASEAN countries, because there was very little time to consult with one another. But of course, such a situation is also very understandable because it is not every day that we have unprecedented global pandemic. But it is also, important to understand that even at the ASEAN level, 10 of the busiest air routes between ASEAN member states is from Asia, right? We have the 10 of the busiest air routes as well. And trade routes are equally very complex right now. And clearly, COVID has made it even more complex in terms of time of how the product has been manufactured until the time that it reaches the patient. So, you're talking about the entire supply chain as well. So a lot of weaknesses has been propped up right now. And of course, the discrepancy between the supply and the demand of prevention and control materials remain very prominent. And there are serious shortages of masks. And criminals, again, are taking advantage of this as well. Europol has seized tens and thousands of, counterfeit masks. Operations carried out by Interpol as well has indicated, a few thousand illegal websites selling unapproved drugs or even counterfeit medicines. So, all in all, it's a very unique global perspective we have to look at it, because we are all accustomed to this very well-oiled supply chain that promises the same-day delivery. But there are times, even at times where, when we had extreme weather, wildfires, or even earthquakes, it was very rarely that the supply chain was impacted as how we are being impacted right now, right? I think most of you will know that the supply chain has actually slowed down by at least 85%. So, there is a huge lack of visibility. There's a lack of collaboration and coordination. But we are all coming together right now, collectively, trying to understand where are the pitfalls and trying to plug them in. And this requires working with one another. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I'll let others talk about their perspective as well.
Yep. So, Stephen, from the brand's perspective, have you actually encountered these weaknesses and threats with the impact on the supply chain and the COVID-19?
Yeah, the impact on our supply chain was mostly due to government actions, like as Ramesh was talking about, where they suddenly banned exports of medicines, or in some cases the ingredients for the medicines. But I think, like most pharmaceutical companies, we're considered critical industries, and we have very robust pandemic planning and business continuity plans. We didn't have to close a single plant for more than a day or two around the world. So I think what we've learned here is the absolute importance of having a pandemic preparation plan and a business continuity plan, and to test those plans regularly. We had very good leadership internally from our health and safety people and from our business continuity people. We identified threats early on to the supply chain. There were the ones we foresaw, such as theft and shortages of ingredients. And then there were the ones we didn't foresee, which was government saying, oh, you can no longer export hydroxychloroquine from India, for example. So I think all in all, the supply chain proved to be, at least the pharmaceutical one, proved to be pretty robust. We encountered a few spot shortages every now and again, but nothing critical. Importance of planning. That's the main thing I can say.
Yep. All right. So, Ruth, from the government perspective, could you share with us a little bit from your side?
I think what Ramesh and Chris have shared is that I think in COVID-19 it really shows out the vulnerability of our supply chain. Never before has the whole drug supply chain been so vulnerable as in the COVID-19, and especially for countries that are solely dependent on importation and reliance on single source of supply or even one or two source of supply. They are in a more dire situation that compared to another country which are more self-sufficient. So things like the manufacturing capabilities and services are also impacted, especially for those who are quite reliant on one single source of supply. So it just this period of time actually just shows forth how vulnerable the whole supply chain. But as also mentioned, I mean there are pandemic kind of preparedness program that has been put in place by the government in most government, and usually so far they are able to have a stockpile of at least more than 2 to 3 months kind of essential medicines available for the people so that they do not run into a critical stage of uh, lack of stock of essential medicines. But whatever it is, I think it is a wake-up call for everybody, okay, both the industry as well as the government, that we cannot take things for granted, and that supply chain, we need to have a range of or alternate sources, you know, to make sure you have backup plans and you have sufficient backup plans to cope with such a huge pandemic situation.
I think I agree with Ruth. I think you'll see shorter supply chains in the future, and I think this will all but put an end to just-in-time supply chains, at least in pharma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So, Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to add on?
No, not here at that point. I will talk a bit
Yep.
more
All right.
on the technology stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So, what can be done by the pharmaceutical companies and the law enforcement agencies to mitigate those threats that has emerged with the COVID-19? So, for example, Stephen, from your side, what has Sanofi been doing that helped mitigate? What are the best practices that you've been doing to mitigate the threats that you have faced?
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge because, of course, I mean, before the pandemic emerges, you don't know, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a respiratory illness or skin disease or
Yeah.
so you can't foresee every possibility. You can only plan for general disruption. So what we did was we worked as a specific example. As soon as hydroxychloroquine became talked about as a prevention or a cure for COVID, we began monitoring every single shipment of hydroxychloroquine worldwide from the time it left the plant until the time it reached its intended destination, with check-ins at every point. And as a result, we didn't see any threats. There were outside the normal kind of expected amount of loss along the way. We didn't see any. So I think you have to be able to make general preparations. You have to make general preparations to be able to monitor shipments of critical drugs. And that's the most important thing you can do. And to maintain kind of normal and regular contacts with law enforcement so that when the crisis does hit, you're not trying to make it up as you go along.
Yep. So, Ruth, from the law enforcement perspective, what could be the best practices that you could share with us that should be implemented to avoid such crisis in the future, to avoid the remaining of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I think that I would law enforcement around the region, they have various levels of resources, both human and financial, and in some less developed countries, they're pretty limited in what they can do, either to prepare or to react. So I think the best thing to do is to have regular contacts with law enforcement, to let law enforcement know that as a pharmaceutical company, we're prepared to support them, materially if necessary, with investigative resources and information to assist if any criminal threats to the supply chain or to the stocks of critical pharmaceutical products occur. Now, that said, the criminals, I mean, we're fortunate that during a pandemic, the criminals were locked down too. So we did see a rather dramatic decrease in reports of counterfeits of non-COVID drugs. The things we normally see counterfeited around the region, the counterfeits for about 2 months disappeared off the market. They literally couldn't be found. And I can only assume that's because criminals were locked down along with everyone else.
Yep. So
We just
Ramesh,
have to wait for post-COVID.
Ramesh, could you also share from the law enforcement perspective with?
All right. Yeah, but before I begin, but Stephen, I agree with you. It has been a little quiet, but I think everything we will start seeing it post-COVID, when everybody, gets some life in
Yes.
life. Yeah. So Azim, to your question on, what can be done in terms of law enforcement or even from PSI or with our members as well. I've always have this to say, it's my 3C mantra, which will be the collaboration, cooperation, community policing. Right? Collaboration would be like for us working together to create something new in terms of support in a shared vision. Cooperation, as it means, it is important in networks where individuals exchange relevant information, resources in support of each other's goal and stuff like that. And of course, community policing as well. In developing a partnership at a bigger level, at least at the ASEAN level, understanding the problem, engaging it, and because we all share the common goals. And like what Stephen mentioned earlier, but because Asia Pacific or everyone else is at different levels of development in stage, so we cannot affect or expect everybody to be on the same plateau. There are different resource capabilities, limited resources, finance, infrastructure. There are many reasons why things are different. But for us to know each of these problems would be firstly to understand, at least at an ASEAN level, before we go any bigger. That's how I would be looking at it. Collaboration, cooperation, community policy.
Yep. Thanks, Ramesh. Ruth, do you have any add-ons?
Well, I think Steve and Ramesh have more or less said it. Of course, we know that there is no simple or standard solution that is applicable to all countries to eliminate the problem. I think that's a fact. There's no silver bullet or a single solution for such a global problem. And I believe that each country has to develop a strategy based on its own situation, taking into account the available infrastructure and the human and other resources. As Ramesh has pointed out, I think even though we are ASEAN countries, in 10 countries in the ASEAN region, each has its own unique characteristics and infrastructure. So, and it's all at different pace, at different level of maturity. So, what works for one country may or may not work for the other country. But whatever it is, as key to everything, I think collaboration is even more important now as in good times. During bad times, during crisis, I think cooperation and collaboration across countries sharing the same borders are very key to addressing such issues together collectively. And I think on top, then because enforcement is a very reactive approach, you see something, you go in and you enforce. Whereas I think they should think about more of a proactive approach. How can they protect? How can they build their regulatory system to kind of be more proactive in detecting before the counterfeits kind of hit them in the face? So one of those things is like they should probably consider adopting a more risk-based post-marketing surveillance kind of strategy to strengthen their regulatory system in that area, to pump in a fair amount of resources to safeguard their supply chain, and augment their regulatory controls. So these are some of those probably areas that they should focus and concentrate to build up on their existing framework and strengthen it further. So yeah, that's about it.
So when it comes to collaboration, who should be initiating the initiative to collaborate? Should it be from the law enforcement side or from the pharmaceutical manufacturer side? From anyone's perspective?
I will go first for this question.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there is no right answer here. I think everyone is in need here. It is there is no harm in law enforcement reaching out to the industry, and obviously industries can always reach out to law enforcement as well. Again, like what everybody has been echoing earlier, it very much depends on the setup of the law enforcement as well, and how much they can do. And if they are resource restrained, and then I think the industry can come in to assist in one way or another. Product identification training on certain specialized aspect of it. This can be done as well. But in totality to your question, I think either one party can approach. But the problem is, do they even want to collaborate? Some of them are very shy in collaboration for reasons unknown. But I think now with this COVID, there are a lot of learning lessons that we can take from, and I think that we should come together and collaborate.
Yep. Stephen, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I just echo that. I mean, because during a pandemic, I mean, everyone is fully focused on public safety and public health issues. So getting the attention of law enforcement for a particular case at a time like this is very difficult. So I think we have to manage our own expectations of what law enforcement is going to be able to do in a pandemic situation.
Yep.
And we have to be prepared to do what we can do by ourselves in the form of monitoring and investigation and product identification and so on, in the absence of available law enforcement resources.
Yep. All right. So move next on for what is the role of technology and what are the solutions that pharma manufacturer can adapt to mitigate the risk of counterfeiters? I think Chris, you could go first on this one.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Basically, when you look at technologies, as I said in the very beginning, there are multiple technologies available based on the philosophy of the company. Many pharmaceutical companies using different technologies. What we found to be effective, basically reflecting our experience in that industry, is that technologies which enable a quick, reliable authentication, by the consumers or any other supply chain members are usually the preferred ones. They should be country specific, as I think Ruth was pointing out before. So each country has some or has its own, let's say, preferences and technologies, and but also when it comes to authentication, these solutions must be easy, reliable, also for governmental organizations like customs. So they will not have different tools or use different things for authentication. It must be very reliable and quick. Second, proprietary technology is something we saw is very important. There are many technologies in the market, of course. What really is important is that this technology cannot be copied. And how do you achieve that? You only achieve it with a proprietary technology. So this is something important. There are, I don't know, just 250 registered hologram producers alone in China. So many people know holograms, but it's for sure not a secured technology. Number three, supply chain visibility is something very important. Basically, from the start of production until the pharmacy or even the patient. If this is something wanted and required. What is also important, number four, would be the rate support. Basically showing the brand owner, the company, where to look for. So where counterfeits are, which are the areas based on GPS location and other information. So where to look for these counterfeited products. So rate support would be number four. Yeah, and number 5, what I also mentioned in the beginning, stopping these gray market activities or cross-border tradings. So those are, I would call it at least from our experience, the top 5 things that are important when it comes to a proactive use of technology. Yeah. So as somebody said before, of course, there are a lot of reactive measures like customs, waiting for the counterfeits to be produced, come into the country, and finding a few of them. But a proactive measure is something usually a bit more effective, and this is what the technology should actually also provide. Yeah.
Yep. So with the current COVID-19, most of the consumers have utilized the online marketplace, ordering their products online because the lockdown, or they cannot find it in their near supermarket. So how can technology support the online marketplace, and how can the online marketplace itself collaborate with technologies and brands in terms of protecting the consumers from counterfeits? So Chris, you could also highlight on that.
Yeah, this is a tricky topic indeed. Selling or verifying the originality of a product before buying it on e-commerce. This is tricky. I know that Amazon and Alibaba are supposedly working on topics like this. At the moment, I do not see any suitable solution in that respect, where in a B2C case, a consumer would be able to identify the originality before the purchase in an e-commerce store. So I don't I don't see any solution at the moment, any effective solution. Yeah, there are a lot of some stuff outside, but I don't see any effective solution at the moment. Yeah.
So, Stephen, from the perspective of a brand, like what kind of technologies does brands or as Sanofi implement, and what do you find effective and what is not effective, and how do consumers interact with these solutions?
Okay, well, I tell you, it's a huge question and a very difficult one, as Christoph has just pointed out. If you say what is not effective, well, what is not effective is a hologram. Don't bother. I've never seen a hologram that couldn't be copied, certainly well enough to fool a consumer, and sometimes a lot better than that. There are a lot of different solutions out there. They all have their weaknesses. You have to decide first. I mean, what's the purpose of the solution? Is it to raise a barrier to entry to a counterfeiter, or is it to enable authentication by a consumer? Those are very different requirements. And it's not just up to us doing the security and investigation aspect of this. There's a business point of view. Christoph just mentioned that a solution needs to be country specific. Ideally, that's a fact. It should be country specific. Practically speaking, though, the business side of things, they will never pay for a single country solution. They want
That's
something
true.
They can put on every product.
Yeah.
They want something they can put on every product from the factory door, no matter where it's going. And the one thing I can guarantee is I'll be shut down if I go in and propose a solution just for Malaysia or just for even a big market like China or India.
Stephen,
sorry,
can I comment on this?
I'm rambling a bit.
Yeah, actually, what I meant in country specific, yes, I agree. There's a trend to globalized solutions. Yes, you just need to make sure that, for example, if you scan, if you have a solution, for example, with a QR code, that it is scannable with WeChat in China and with like another scan engine outside of China. So this is what I mean by country specific.
Yes,
the tools people are using in the specific countries, that it's working everywhere. Yeah, but you are not forcing people to download an app to do an authentication in a country where people usually never download an app, but 100% using WeChat like China. That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And in fact, I anecdotally in China, I can tell you that
Yes.
You know, we began with the Ali barcode system as a combination traceability and anti-counterfeit measure, and it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because anything that depends on the consumer to do something at their end
Yes.
is a
fail.
fatal flaw, because
It's a flaw.
compliance on the consumer end is very, very low. And in fact, in the case of the Ali barcode, we measured for one of our largest products, and you know, the scan rate went from 100% at the factory down to an undetectable level at the consumer end. Just because, well, people tell you they want a solution at the consumer end, consumers really, I have to say, they tend not to use them.
So how about raising awareness to the consumers? Because some brands are actually avoid sharing how to indicate a counterfeit, because they believe that if they say in the market that their products are counterfeited, it will affect their brand. So they rather not share how to identify their counterfeits in the market than saying to the consumers, we have counterfeits.
Again, that's a very fine line, and I admit there's some tension between, you know, the business and the regulatory side, who say no, we should tell people that, you know, that there are counterfeits on the market, and the business who says, well, we don't want to scare people. I think Sanofi's come down on the side of education. If you go onto our company website, there's publicly available information there about how to protect yourself from counterfeits. We put, if you fly on Air France out of France, you'll find in the in-flight magazine, you know, you'll find information by Sanofi about protecting yourself against counterfeit drugs abroad. And most of that is concentrated on educating the consumer to be alert to things that ought to tell you something is wrong. You know, don't buy drugs from a guy peddling them on the sidewalk. You know, don't buy things that are, you know, 1/10 the price they ought to be, and so on.
Yep. So
may I add three things to this? Do we have time? Otherwise, just to that original question, I don't know where it's coming from, which country, but we're also aware of the certain sensitivity. It depends really per industry. First thing is, most consumers are anyway aware that they're counterfeits. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not a big. For most of the industries, I wouldn't claim that it's true for all industries. It's not a big deal to talk about it. Second, some of our customers generally talk about security. Yeah, they are not so be aware of counterfeits. You need to scan to find. Yeah, so just put it under the frame of security. And number three is, you can also do it differently. You can make people scan, for example, to win something or to get a bonus or as a part of a CRM program. And without knowing, you can check, or without the consumer knowing, you can check the authenticity of the product at the same time, without telling the consumer. So those three things you can do when it comes to this sensitivity or communication sensitivity question. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the Q&A sessions. So we have received a few questions from our attendees. So we could start with the first question, which is, what are the threats and weaknesses that emerged during the? Oh, sorry, we've already answered this one. Yep. So how can brand owners protect its legal distribution from counterfeiters? So I think Ruth, you could share a little bit on this one.
Your question is, how can brand owners protect
Yep.
Its legal distribution
from counterfeiters?
Well, I think brand owners, a lot of them, they actually do incorporate, like what has been shared earlier by Chris and Stephen, is that a lot of brand owners, they would definitely want to protect their own products, and in some way or another, they would have some form of tracking system, some kind of traceability of their product, whether via RFID or barcoding or whatever overt or covert kind of tracking systems that they may adopt. So these are some of the ways that, from what we understand, as an ex-regulator, the brand owners, they do incorporate some of these technologies within their product to help them trace. Of course, counterfeits can appear everywhere, and it's like a cat and mouse game, you see, and I think it's a pretty challenging for brand owners sometimes. And when they realize that there's this counterfeit situation in a country, they will spend quite a bit of resources trying to enforce and drill down to the source of where it is being manufactured and related stuff like that. But from regulator point of view, I think what we always do as a regulator is we usually will try to, as far as possible, to educate consumers. Okay, try to heighten the awareness towards counterfeit situations, or buying things online from dubious source. We try to warn them, through educational, through advocacy efforts. We try to bring about heightened awareness towards buying things off from dubious platforms or sources. So usually, like it has been mentioned before, things like you don't buy things from unknown websites, huh? And then things that promises too good to be true, an overnight miracle cure, think twice before you go out and buy,
Yeah.
yeah, and or the price is just too good to be true, or yeah, things like that, and a lot of awareness needs to be drummed in now time and time again, so that consumers will become more self-aware and be more aware to protect themselves. It is not just one party, the government protecting, not just the brand owner protecting, but the consumers themselves, they also need to play a part to protect
Collaboration, yeah.
themselves. Yeah, right.
Yep. All right. So I think this one could be for you, Chris. Is dual color precise positioning partial holography sticker easy to be duplicated by counterfeiters?
Yes, for sure. This is something easy. Yeah, as I said, there are just alone 250, 300 registered hologram producers in China alone. Yeah, if you look at the whole world and how many unregistered, I don't know. But these technologies, mainly these technologies, are reproducible. Yeah, as soon as there is a machine available where you can produce, you can counterfeit anything. Yeah, so whenever you decide for an anti-counterfeiting technology, make sure you go for technology where ideally the producer is building his own technology, his own machine to produce that technology. Yeah, so this is something then more secure. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So next question would be, how do you measure ROI from anti-counterfeit? I think, Stephen, you could share a little bit from your brand perspective.
Yeah, that's again that's a difficult question. I mean, fortunately, in the pharma industry, it's not all about the ROI for counterfeiting. I mean, we have to take patient safety seriously, and we have a duty of care to police our products and to try to prevent counterfeiting, even if the ROI is negative. That said, businesses look at you when you say that and like, yeah, right. And since our budget comes from them, we do have to show some value. So we do have kind of a black box formula for getting a rough ROI for the anti-counterfeiting effort. And I have to say that, it's positive almost all the time. And sometimes it's very positive. One of the difficulties with that is that the most widely counterfeited drugs are not the ones with the highest return, or the highest price. I mean, the most widely counterfeited drugs are actually the common ones that people take for chronic conditions, or just for headaches and colds and so on. It's not the stuff that costs $20,000 a dose that gets faked, because the distribution network for that is very tight, and the patients are often known individually. It's things that are sold in the billions of doses that are most widely counterfeited, and those are also the ones where it's the most difficult to make an ROI argument. So we rely on patient safety and duty of care argument, and that fortunately in the pharmaceutical industry, that's an argument you can always win.
If I may add, we came across that question a couple of times, and we actually have developed a tool, kind of a business case, where you enter certain things and then you get your ROI at the end. So you can submit, or the person that was asking that question, happy to submit. You can find me on LinkedIn or wherever. So I can provide you with a tool as a web tool. So I can just send you an URL, then you can do your own ROI. So there is developed by a consulting company, not by us. Yeah. So it's an independent tool, so you can calculate your ROI based on an investment into an anti-counterfeiting solution. Yeah. So very easy tool.
Yep. So Christoph, you have a question. Apart from the insensitive consumer to do QR code scanning to check for authenticity, is there any other way from the tech perspective to enable consumers to effectively check authentication and authenticity?
Is there any other? So I understanding, I mentioned the incentivized QR code scanning before. If there's any other way, yeah, difficult. This might come from the direction that sometimes certain industries are not allowed to do these kind of things. Maybe what Ruth said, education. Yeah, so some of our customers do a lot of education. Basically educate consumers to scan. What we really find is this these certain loyalty points or CRM activities can be very, very effective and can push scanning rates up to 10-15%. Yeah, usually without all of this, they are maybe 1.5-2%. Yeah, in that range, if brand owners are lucky. But I'm not aware of any other, let's say, effective way of incentivizing. Yeah, so this is something we can discuss. Yeah, one-on-one, of course. Sorry about that.
Ramesh, what are the best practices that can strengthen the supply chain of a product? Okay, so again, I'm not an expert in this specific issue on supply chain itself, but I think what one can do or one can continue to do is, of course, ensure you have visibility over the entire supply chain. And I think, streamlining your supply can be one of very good efforts as well, which means, visibility end to end throughout the entire supply chain, perhaps designing an optimal supply chain network. Post-COVID, I think we'll see this because there are a lot of learning lessons that we can take away from how we manage the challenges, how we manage the challenges that came out of COVID. And of course, developing substantial, sustainable sterilization strategy as well. This is the things that both, the experts earlier were talking about as well. Perhaps smart packaging, label, nothing unusual. What I'm saying is about actually that's currently being done, but I think, the only thing is constant is change. So I think we will be evolving as fast as technology does. So whatever I say now, probably by tomorrow morning would be yesterday's news. Yeah, in fact, it would be yesterday's news. So yeah, that's what I would say to safeguard. One more question: what can brands do to protect themselves? I think Ruth, you could take this one.
Yes, yeah. Basically, what we said many times before, it's technology. It should not be should be a cost-effective technology, of course. It should be arranged based on the targets that you have. So I think Stephen said that before, whatever you want to achieve at the end, if you want to interact with consumers, or if you want to have it only checked, let's say, without consumers in the supply chain. So depending on the targets, a cost-effective technology that guarantees you an ROI at the end is something very useful and can be easily implemented. Yeah.
All right. So for pharmaceutical industries, is it better to use physical or digital anti-counterfeit techniques?
I would say, I would say I would put it as a combination. Usually we combine physical and digital. If you only go for digital, maybe accept a blockchain. If you only go for digital, this can be easily copied. Yeah, a secured QR code or QR code many people's try to sell can be copied, of course. So usually you would smartly combine a physical feature as well as for example, a QR code in order to verify then this physical feature. So this is a smart combination usually. You can also go the way of blockchain. This is a totally different topic then, but usually I would answer to combine those, provide you a very high security.
Yep. All right, I think we have reached to an end for the questions. Is there anyone would like to add on to recap or to add on one last point from all the speakers?
Oh, sure. I just kind of echo what Ramesh said just now. It's you have to take an end-to-end approach, and we do that. And in fact, that's exactly what we call it. So we police the product from the research and development phase right back to the destruction of a product that's been returned because it's expired or.
I think if I may,
the only way to assure protection.
Right.
Yes, Russ?
If I may add, I think to strengthen the supply chain, I think it is very much the so-called the mandate of the regulator. So you need to have a very strong national drug regulation that puts in place controls at every point, from the sourcing of materials to the quality standards of the materials or ingredients used, ensuring quality of the materials used, as well as the good manufacturing practices, including good distribution practices. So these are criteria and requirements set forth in the drug laws for industry or industry players to comply, to ensure that product that is in the market is of good quality and safe and efficacious for consumer to use. So very much having a strong national drug regulation is one of the key contributing factor in strengthening a supply chain, and having and that also includes a very well developed drug laws. Not many countries have very well developed drug laws, and that's where issues will arise. Some countries they use a lot of multiple layer of wholesalers, and that creates a lot more problems. So having a good and strong, robust national drug regulation on the supply chain framework, supply chain control is actually one of the key way to strengthen, and ensure that products that consumer use are of good quality and efficacious and safe for them.
Yep. All right. So, Chris, anything you'd like to add on?
Yeah.
Ramesh?
Yeah,
No,
I would say this. Counterfeiting is the second oldest profession in the world. It has been around for a long time. It will continue to be around for a long time. But what we need to understand is that it is a real issue, and it is not a one man or one country or a one company's challenge. It is every one of us. All of us are supposed to be in this together. And the only way forward is for us to understand the reality of where we are in. And the only way forward would be for us to actually be working together. Communication is the essential part of it. And I think collaboration is the reality.
Yep.
That's my take on this.
Yeah.
Right. Chris, anything else?
No, everything is set. Yeah. So it was very nice comments. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we've reached to an end. So I would like to really thank all the speakers who have contributed the time and invested in the time to be here today. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you. I think Stephen is having some connection issues. All right.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, and thanks for being here again. Next, we will have Dennis Xu, Regional Solution Architect from HB Indigo, who will be sharing a little bit on the security and brand protection with HB. He will be live in few minutes. Until then, there is a quick video from HB that I would love to share with everyone.
ça, c'est quelque chose de fondamental, de pouvoir justifier l'authenticité du produit lié à la marque et à cette identité personnelle du client. Et aujourd'hui, grâce aux technologies numériques HP Indigo et ce savoir-faire notamment de notre partenaire AT&T, on est capable de lutter contre cette contrefaçon. AT&T recherchait un partenaire qui était déjà bien spécialisé dans l'étiquette numérique, puisque AT&T développait déjà des technologies, je dirais, de traçabilité et d'authentification, mais pas de façon unitaire. Alors la société Lata a toujours été une société innovante qui a fait beaucoup de recherche et développement. Nous avons des très gros marchés avec des gros clients qui représentent un chiffre d'affaires important sur l'année, mais en fait sur une multitude de commandes. Donc bien entendu, il n'est plus possible dans le process classique d'imprimer des étiquettes et c'est obligatoirement fait en digital. Puisque la qualité d'impression des presses HP Indigo nous permet d'imprimer sur tout type de support et donc des niveaux de technologie aussi élevés que demande la donnée variable et sur des quantités très très importantes. Puisqu'à ce jour, on a imprimé plus de 400 millions d'étiquettes adhésives autocollantes, sécurisées, tracées, authentifiées. Nous avons développé les encres invisibles et notamment par l'intermédiaire des presses HP Indigo, donc des encres bien spécifiques qui nous permettent d'imprimer aussi bien donc dans l'invisible et d'associer ces technologies de l'invisible au visible. C'est la qualité d'impression aussi de HP qui a été vraiment au-delà de toutes les technologies jusqu'à aujourd'hui, qui nous ont permis d'imprimer des impressions aussi petites comme le micro-caractère et aussi précises comme le sont les cils vectors imprimés pour la société AT&T. La technologie HP Indigo et ce savoir-faire que l'on a dans le domaine de la sécurité, traçabilité, authentification nous ont permis d'acquérir de nouveaux marchés, donc de nouveaux clients. Et ça, c'est essentiel pour une société. Nos clients, cela leur a permis de développer leur chiffre d'affaires, c'est certain, de monter certainement la valeur ajoutée de leurs produits et puis de se développer en termes de volume et puis également de pouvoir assurer l'authenticité. Donc ce sont des éléments clés de réussite pour nos clients.
Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Hazem, how are you?
Hi, Dennis. How are you? Thanks for joining us. So let me introduce you first. This is Dennis Chu, the regional solution architect for HP Indigo, who has he supports the Asia Pacific region on labels and packaging printing industry sector. So Dennis has more than 20 years of experience in the print industry, and previously he also supported many brand owners on their end-to-end supply chain and project management requirements. So Dennis will be sharing with us today a little bit on the security and brand protection with HP. So again, HP is a co-sponsor for this webinar. We'd like to thank HP for the contribution, and the mic is yours, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Hazem. Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis Chu from HP. Again, thank you, everyone, for the endurance on this webinar, still staying around for me. I have another 2 hours to go. No, there's probably 30 minutes to finish this webinar, so it should be not a lot of information to show you. But let me first introduce you about HP. I believe everybody knows about HP. It's created by two engineers in 1939, Bill Hewitt and Dave Packard. So behind this image, you'll probably see Dave Packard's garage in Palo Alto in California. That is where they started with creating audio oscillator to really test out all the sound equipment and so to Walt Disney Studios. So with this heritage, 80 years of innovations is all in our DNA. In 2015, Hewlett Packard company split into two companies, and you can see here we have a Hewlett Packard Enterprise and HP Inc. So HP Inc. is where I come from. So HP Inc. you will see we have a commercial PC, consumer PC, inkjet, laserjet, and one of the department called graphics, which is the GSB, graphic solution business. That is where I'm going to talk about today. HP Inc. today, I have a FY18 result of 58.5 billion business revenue, more than 55,000 employees worldwide, 170 countries, more than 26,000 of patents. So this is just a quick introduction of what HP Inc. today. If you look at GSB alone, this is all the application and segment that we cover. and we are the leading graphics and digital transformations. And one of the technology that we have here is HP Indigo. So that is what we're going to touch on today on the GCP products application, labels application, packaging, on pouches, on boxes, and all this. And this is a very comprehensive portfolio to show you the digital press that we have today to help brands to do their digital printing on labels, on pouches, on boxes. So this is characterized into A3 size paper or B2 size paper, or is a raw fat machines that you're printing on. Worldwide, we have more than 8,000 HP Indigo presses installed in more than 5,000 customers. So you can guess that there's more than some customer has more than one machine, and there's the breakdown of all the different regions in the world of our Indigo presses. HP Indigo is a LEP technology. So this liquid electrophotography technology consists of three foundations. One is the HP Indigo electro ink, and we also use a thermal offset technology and a direct contact transfer technology. And this is very similar to offset technology that I will show you. Thermal offset technology, the image is transferred from plate to blanket, and with a very good ink properties that we have, we are able to give a very sharp edges on the dots when we print, and compared to offset, you can see the result on the right. The one-shot technology that we have in HP Indigo also helps for perfect registrations. And you can see here on most of the graphics art market where they print on most FMCG products or cosmetic products, they are using Pantone color, but we only have CMYK, orange, green, and violet inks. So it's 7 color stations that we use for printing the industrial products. Ink innovation in HP is really big. We develop orange, violet, and green for Pantone matching requirement. We develop white for clear materials. We develop silver inks to have the silver effects on certain premium products. We also have fluorescent inks. We also have developed invisible yellow and blue for security requirement, and also Tagan ink. So there's a lot of ink innovations in our company. Another features that we have is we can print pretty much on most of the media or substrate that you call. It can be uncoated, it can be coated, synthetics, it can be a cell adhesive label, it can be BOPP film, metallized films. So this is material that we can print on. And on the folding carton, we have pharmaceutical products that we can print on, healthcare, nutraceutical, personal care, cosmetics, confectionery, anything that is on the shelf today that you see in any supermarket, our pharmaceuticals company, they are printed pretty much using our technology as well. Flexible packaging, our machine are able to do this type of pouches, 3-seal bags, and all that. So this is all printed in our machine as well. So everything that you see on this screen here is printed in HP Indigo, and yeah, there's a high quality silver. Any properties or requirement that you have in your brand and you want them to be digitally printed, let us know. We will help you out and we will show you more on that. So let's touch on the HP Indigo Secure, and HP Indigo Secure for security and brand protections. Before we go into the actual solutions or technology that we use, let me introduce you the security layers. So very basic, we break into 4 layers here, layer 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way to the forensic one. So the number 4 layer we have is called overt, which is a QR code or any guillotine design that you might put into the package. Yeah, and people like security or brand protection company will want to use this sort of technology. Semi-covert, for example, you have something that is not quite visible, like a micro text, or it can be a lenticular images. You will need a medium like a magnifying glass or interference slide to actually help you to see those type of semi-covert informations. And if you go up further up, is for the covert, which is like totally invisible. So there is a layer 2. And brand inspector like to use covert requirements. They will have a UV light or IR, infrared light readers or Tagan readers to actually read them. And of course, if you want to go into the high security features for I have to say, security documents and tax stamps. This type of requirement where you need forensic requirement to be find out how genuine or authenticity of the products based on the lab analysis. That is the highest security layers that we have. So this is the 4 layers that we look at. If you look into what HP Indigo Secure solution offer today, we break into 3 pillars. So on the left, we have the security marks and design. And that is just marks include a QR code, data matrix code, and everything is variables. And also design, we talk about guilloche design, we talk about variable tags on the patterns and all that. So HP have our own solution called HP Smart Stream Designer. It's a plugin in Adobe Suite that help you to do all these type of marks and design. We also have solution partners like Ura, Haya, and ECFA. So we'll go into more details on that. In the middle, we have the security inks from HP. So we have the invisible yellow and blue. We are coming out invisible red and green soon this year. And we also work with Be Secure on Tagging ink, Authentics on Tagging ink as well. And later on, I will show you more on Verified Me on their Rainbow Secure infrared inks. And this is all what we call the color, the invisible inks that you will see. And the last one, we are coming out with a new color shifting ink soon this year as well. That will all under the security inks that we have. And lastly, on the third pillar, we have the track and trace solutions. So we don't have our own track and trace platform, but we are working with solution partners like Micro Focus on their GPass platform. We also work with ScanTrust, ProofTag, and advanced track and trace, which what you see in the first video that we have shown. So if you look into the solution from HP Smart Stream Designer, this is all the marks and design that can be happens in this software. So this software allows you to do micro tags, very tiny data matrix code, guilloche. We can create millions of different pattern. With one single patterns, we can actually create millions of them for you. And you can see that we have also security fonts and edge printing at the end here. Our solution partner Haya, this is all their a few, not all, but this is a fair bit of their solutions they have today for security, including anti-copy solutions, including lenticular image, colorful QR, and scan and match technology, bacterial fiber, and all this. So this is all their technology they have. So if you're interested to know more, let me know. We can come and do a face-to-face to you. Again, today's our webinar is 30 minutes, so it is not able to cover every single details, but I try to consolidate everything into this slide to show you. The next partner we have is ECFA. ECFA and us have come up with the HP Indigo Secure Studio. This is also another plugin for Adobe Illustrator that allows you to do guilloche design, allows you to do some variable line with security screening onto the background images and all this. So this is what this HP Indigo Secure Studio will offer you. So just to give you a quick overview. So features like line raster, features like variable text on the patterns that in the leaf. Yeah, so this is what this software allows you to do. When we touch on the security inks, the first one will be the HP Indigo Invisible Electronic Inks. What you see on screen is actually the invisible yellow. So when you put a UV light on top, you can actually see it showing up. We also have people looking into putting the QR code, which is the serialization of the QR code. So every QR is different and to be printed invisible using the invisible yellow ink as well. The partnership with Haya also come into building something called bacteria pills patterns. So what these do is that we have the products on the wine, for example. So you can do a scan on the QR, and he will bring you to the website. So this website will show you exactly where is the bacteria pills patterns going to show up using the UV ink. Everyone will be different, so every of this image will be unique and is all serialized. If you want, you can scan the QR code on my left hand side, and then you can actually see the result yourself. Next, sorry. So this is the Haya the test run that we have done. And you can see here on the right hand side, when we use a UV light to shine on it, the bacteria patterns will come up, and the pills will show you on different images. They come out in the different positions on it as well. Next, let us touch on the Verified Me, the Rainbow Secure Infrared Ink. So Verified Me have collaborated with HP Indigo to come up with this infrared ink. So this ink is invisible as well, but you only need infrared to actually see it visible. So this is Verified Me comes. They have designed and developed an authenticator for the brand inspector to use. So first, this is all done inside our Indigo digital press. The good thing about using this type of technology is that you can print your design, you can print the covert inks, and everything is in single pass. So that is why this is a very big push in this security requirement now. And Verified Me also work with Micro Focus on their G+ platforms. And what we have here, for example, I have a wine bottle, and the brand inspector of the wine brand use the authenticator. They will put the mobile phone with the apps, the VeriPass apps, and they will do a overt scan. So when we say overt scan, we're actually scanning the normal QR code on the wine labels. The software or the apps will actually show the location of the covert marks. So he will say that, where is my hidden code? Then when you turn on your authenticator to the infrared light, it will then allows you to look for the positions of the covert marks and allows you to do authentication from that sense. So this is a platform that is then able to allows you to do track and trace requirement of the scan as well. So this is the combination of Verified Me and Micro Focus. The next partner we have is ScanTrust. So ScanTrust is a track and trace solutions with us. So on the left hand side is a normal QR. So if you do scan it right now, you will probably be bring to the ScanTrust website. It allows you to see the product's journey. Where is the products actually comes from? It's like the FOB to farm tech concepts. Of course, ScanTrust will also work with blockchains technology to bring you into this type of requirement. The next one ScanTrust do is the secure marks. These secure marks actually allows you to do authentications of the products from without going into the cloud. So this is something patented technology from ScanTrust. And one of the case study that we have with ScanTrust is Locon. So Locon is a company in Switzerland. They actually provide secure packagings for lab tests, allow testing labs to verify the authenticity of the bio samples. So this is all printed in HP Indigo presses as well. So this is one of the ScanTrust case study that is in public that you can actually search and find them. So that pretty much show you what HP Indigo Secure is all about on the brand protection side. From this slide, you probably see that brand protections cover by 2022, we have about 3.6 billion market that we can actually go for. But if you look into the security printing area, personal ID, tax stamps, this is all very critical for us in a way that they require higher level of security, like forensic security layers. So what can we do with security printing in this type of market? So let us have a look. The security print market is facing very unique challenges. We just listed 4 here. One is that today the counterfeiters are very, very smart, and they are very good in overcoming your legacy technology. And the brand is chasing behind them and trying to change the security element, and this never stop. The brand have to keep changing the design, changing what can we actually block these counterfeiters. And of course, the printers, they will have high volume requirement and they have low volumes printing. So how are you going to mix it? Because with a traditional printing company, to do those type of security printing, you need to go through 4 different passes, 4 different machines, and it can be a lot of labor intensive as well. So this is why this security print market is facing a lot of challenges. Even in today's, you see in COVID's time, you're very difficult to get so many workers into the factory to start starting up all different machines. So it's going to be even harder. And also the intensive manufacturing, you need a very big factory to actually house all these machines to help you do all this printing. So in our lifetime, we probably see this type of sign. You cannot go to the left, you cannot go to the right, and you pretty much have no way to go. To adapt to such situation is very important, and that is why we want everyone to change into a newer technology of doing the digital printing. So before we can change, we need to understand what is the unique requirement in security printing. So first, they require highly layered security solutions up to forensic requirement, which I showed you in the chart early on. In security printing, there's no CMYK needs. They normally use spot color, they use and security inks, restricted solution and capabilities, because more and more requirement come into variable informations. The old traditional method to do variable is a very difficult one for them. So variable security content is what everyone is doing today. And some resistant against digital production print. Lower resolution is one of the key things, but let us see how are we going to overcome all this. So HP Indigo Secure team in Israel listened to all this. They learned, they designed, they executed the new features that we have. So what they have done is that they developed with the right products, with the right partners. So we picked Ura. Ura is one of the key supplier on security features for bank, for government sectors to do bank note requirement and all this. So Ura and HP decided to work together, and this is what we are coming out with. So this year we are coming out with an Indigo Secure Press, a press that is a web press. And we are able to fully print secure information, and I'll show you how it works. Second, we are coming out with a high definition RIP and imaging technology for the B2 press, 12,015K. And lastly, security inks that we develop, we're going to increase with UV red and green, and we are adding a color shifting inks as well. So let us look at the first one, the HP Indigo 6K Secure Press. So this secure press is not something that we can sell to everyone. You have to be qualified as a security printers. And the application that we are looking at is secure documents, tax stamps, security labels, government and authority certificates, vehicle license. And the package that we put on is very sophisticated in the way that we are having password protections. We are having a Ura security calibration tools to make the machine able to do forensic layer security features. So this is a very, very secure machine on the new way of digital printing on security documents. So there's a lot of confidential information here that I cannot really talk about. It will be good if you have a project or you are interested in any of these. Do let us know. We will get back to you more details. Just to show you a sample that we've done, this is a text stamp that we are printed, and you can see here overt layers and covert layers. Everything is printed in one press and one pass. And it's a full multi-layer secure documents that I can show you. Everything here can be variables. That means everything is not similar, so they are serialized. So even the one in the middle of the design, the variable text can be changed. So everything can be variable in here. Sorry. So if you look into the sample that I have here, in the covert, when you look into the covert, even the covert printing, the UV invisible yellow and blue, all the flower patterns is different on every single labels. So this is how the digital Indigo press allows you to do that very easily with one operators on this one press. And you can see all the serialization code on the bottom is all different, is unique on every labels as well. The next one that we are coming out this year will be the sheet-fed 12,015K for security document. So the first thing we are coming out is a fine line RIP, which is able to RIP 1600 DPI. that give you a very fine dots, and also we are able to do invisible yellow inks on this sheet fed machine. Lastly, we are still working with Ura to actually make this a secure press as well, to allow printing high security documents like birth certifications and all that. The new fine line rip that you see on my screen here allows you to do really fine in a way that it comes with high definition lasers, and also it comes with a rip that are able to generate this type of graphics for you. The text that you see here, the macro text, is 0.8 point. This is not the Ura micro dot text. So with on top of what you see here, we have a new Ura micro dot text can even bring down to 1 pixel size text. So it's like really fine and really readable. And lastly, this is our first in the world digital color shifting ink from green to dark red. So this is something that has been welcoming into the security world that everyone looking for, and we will have this in end of the year. So thank you again. Today I have touched on HP Indigo Secure solutions, and you can see we cover pretty much everything that you need to know about what we are doing for this security and brand protection market. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. I'm Dennis Chu. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. I think we have a few questions that we have received. So I could start with this question. So how adapting HP solution can protect my brand?
Yeah, it's a very big question. As you can see here, first, where we need to understand your brand, we need to understand how your package looks like, and we need to understand your requirement. So when I say requirement, we look into your budgets, we look into which level of security you are looking for, that you want to protect on. Are you looking for consumer authentication requirement, or are you looking on diversion requirement? And things like that. So once we get into know more about what your requirement is, we are able to consult and provide you more suggestions of what is the solution is suitable for you and who you can talk to in our solution partners range, and then bring them along into the table and talk about how we can help your brands to really protect your products to all the needs that you want.
Yep. So another question is overt an effective solution or enough to protect a product?
I think the overt solutions today is something to confuse the counterfeiters. So what we show you today is technology that can do a lot of things. Yeah, we can do overt, we can do covert, but most of the brands today, they use a combination. So every label and packaging they will have a combination of overt and covert just to confuse the counterfeiters. And that is very important, because counterfeiters sometimes they counterfeit certain things, they will miss a lot of other things, and that is why we always recommend combination of every technology we can. But the overt one is normally the design technology, so that one will be a slightly more lower in cost. And when you start thinking about diversion requirement, supply chain track and trace requirement, then that will increase into getting a platforms that can track and trace platforms that can help you to maintain and keep track of all this information, and the cost can go up a little bit more. So there is a lot of considerations to actually look into.
Yep. So if you guys have if the attendees have any more questions, you can drop it in the comment box or the live chat on YouTube. So we have one more question. Can HP solutions protect my products that are sold on Lazada and Shopee?
Protect the products in Lazada
online? Yeah, I think
Shopee.
Online. Yeah.
Yeah, so as I say, the HP is all about packaging, is all about printing tamper evidence requirement on labels so that we can stick into your product. So one thing, we need to see how your products actually looks like, how is it being packaged today, if there is a need to do tamper evidence, and how are we going to use technology to actually make sure the evidence cannot be counterfeited by people who pull off, change the products inside, and then it get even worse in that case. So we need to really see the products itself and see how we can actually help you. Definitely we have a lot of brands that is we working together today that using a lot of this technology that I show you today, that will help them at any way to sell their products as well. So there's a lot of security features that can help you on diversion requirement if you're worried about that.
Yeah. And one more question is, what is the best practices to protect a product?
I think when we say protect the products, it's something that the brands want to make sure that the products cannot be counterfeit. So the brands will use a covert technology like a UV invisible inks to print a certain variable text or variable code. And then they will, so nobody can actually see it. Yeah. So this is again, I don't have a lot of case study to show you, mainly because most of the brand, if they do have something, it is all confidential. We are not allowed to talk about. And what brand normally do is really to go into the covert and even higher to make sure that their products can be tracked down without having someone counterfeited their products. And one of the things that has been mentioned in the earlier webinar is a lot of brands do not really want authentication as well to be shown in consumer face, to say that I want to, for example, you go to the supermarket aisle and you bought the products and you want to use a QR and you want to scan it, and he will pop up and say it's authenticated or not. So this is something also quite scary, because brands worried that when they start doing that consumer without education, without really understanding how it works, they will scare the whole business, and people will not be relying to buy their products anymore. So this is something that brand is concerned as well.
True. All right. So one more question. These solutions can be adapted for government documents.
Yes. As I say, we are coming up with the Secure Press, and we are heading into the high security features using digital presses today. So yes, we are heading that way. And if you are interested in knowing more about government document, let us know. We already have all this information ready to go into tax stamp market and things like that.
Yep. One more question is, what is the greatest challenge in your experience adopting these techs and solutions in reducing user friction for consumers using these protection features?
I think, as I say, number one, we really want to sit down with you, and all the brands that we spoke to. I think brands have a lot of concern about, as I said the earlier on, about, do you really want authentication to cause that problems? And the second one is, brand do not, if the security features is to be used by consumer, that means consumer can scan it and know something about whether it's a genuine or a fake products. Brand want them to be easy. They don't want them to download apps and all this. Brand want them to just use a website or just a normal iPhone camera, or even WeChat from China. They can just scan and just go into somewhere continuously. So there's a lot of consideration in simplicity of how to really make it easier for consumer to actually scan the products to understand whether they is genuine or fake. So this is more consideration that we have to put into to understand the requirement. And I think in the market there is more and more ideas of coming up with AR technology to be able to really use AR to allow the customer engagement requirement for brands as well. So I spoke to a company in Melbourne here. They are working on a web AR technology, or they call it the progressive AR. So using that technology, they can actually bring them into authenticity of the products. So that is also something will be happening in the future.
Yeah. One more question is, how can consumers detect a counterfeit medicine? Any signs? So what should consumers look for to detect a counterfeit?
Again, the look for on counterfeit, as I say, we have overt, which is all the guillotine design, all the micro text, and all the different security features that we put into the product design. That for consumer to look at them is going to be very difficult. Yeah. So I would suggest for any medicines that consumer need to look at, should be based on the track and trace solutions, to do a scan, to do authenticity of the product itself. That type of technology will be easier for consumer to use straight away. Of course, we do see a lot of brands, when they put in some products, they actually added a lot of design, guillage, all this. But again, it's very hard for consumer to actually see the differences.
Well, I think that's all the questions we received. We still have a minute. If anyone have any further question, you can drop it in the comment box. If not, I think we've covered all the questions that we received.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Dennis, for the informative presentation. It was definitely something interesting for us to know about. We highly appreciate HP's presence in this webinar. Thank you again. And I think actually you haven't shared your thoughts on the pharmaceutical with the COVID-19 case. If you have anything that you'd like to add on what the previous speakers have just said.
I think I have already tell a little bit about that in the webinar, where I say that we have a lot of printers that we know they are very difficult to get people back into the factory to do the printing because of the COVID restriction in certain country. And if you go into those traditional method of printing security labels or packaging, you probably find that the labor intensive traditional method is something that you probably want to rethink about how you're going to do this type of security printing in this new normal. And can we actually have one person to do all this? And this is where we are good at today with HP Indigo technology, that this digital press to do your security document or security label or packaging requirement, you only need one person to do all this in one single pass. And that is the whole recommendation that we will want everyone to know.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Dennis, for your time. Thanks for your contribution for today. I think we have reached to an end with our webinar. So thanks to all the attendees who took from their time and actually managed to stay with us for the almost 1 hour. So we definitely look forward to meeting and to meeting everyone again, since we cannot meet one-on-one due to the COVID-19, but we indeed look forward to our upcoming webinar, which is the cracking down on illicit trade activities. So we definitely look forward to meeting you again, everyone. So you can register through our website, which is www.high security printing brand protection, which is hspbb.com. So we look forward to meeting you again. And thanks, Dennis, again for your time.
Thank you, Hazem.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all
Bye-bye.
for your time. Bye-bye. Thank you.